If you told me a year ago that one night could redefine my marriage, I would have laughed and called it melodramatic. I thought I understood the rules of love, the boundaries of loyalty. But looking back, I can see the quiet cracks forming, hairline fractures in what I once believed was unshakable. My name is Daniel, and I've been married to Aaron for 7 years. 7 years, long enough for our friends to call us solid, long enough for my parents to stop asking if we were sure about each other. And for a long time, we were sure. We'd built a life together in a small but sunlit apartment overlooking the city. We had our Saturday morning rituals, coffee from the cafe downstairs, a slow walk through the farmer's market, and lazy afternoons where music played while we cooked side by side. But somewhere in the rhythm of stability, the tempo slowed too much. Aaron's job as an architect demanded more late nights. Mine as a marketing coordinator meant I was often exhausted by the time I got home. We spoke, but not in the way we used to. Our conversations became functional, grocery lists, bill reminders, quick updates on the cat. Affection was still there, but dulled, like a song played through worn-out speakers. It was around that time I met Lucas. He joined the office in early spring, a freelance designer contracted for a few months. Tall, with an easy laugh and a voice that seemed to smooth the edges of the day. He wasn't my type in the traditional sense, but there was something about the way he listened, really listened, that drew me in. At first, our exchanges were strictly professional, feedback on layouts, quick chats over the printer. But within a few weeks, those conversations started to linger past their practical purpose. One Thursday, after a particularly long meeting, Lucas caught me in the hallway. "You always look like you've got a dozen thoughts going at once," he said, grinning. I laughed, brushing it off, but something in me warmed. It had been a long time since anyone outside of Aaron had made me feel seen, and if I was honest, even Aaron's attention had been stretched thin lately. At home that night, Aaron was buried in blueprints, pencil tapping against his jaw. I tried to tell him about my day, but his eyes stayed fixed on the page. "Sorry, babe, just let me finish this line," he murmured. I smiled and left him to it, though the words I'd wanted to share stayed lodged in my throat. The next week, Lucas invited me to grab a quick coffee during our break. It felt harmless, just caffeine and company, but I found myself choosing my shirt more carefully that morning. We sat by the window of a corner cafe, the sunlight breaking through the glass in long, golden lines. He asked about my favorite places in the city, my childhood, even my fears. It startled me, how easily I answered, how much I wanted to keep talking. That night, lying in bed beside Aaron, I replayed moments from that conversation. The way Lucas leaned forward when I spoke, the spark of interest in his eyes. I told myself it was nothing, just the novelty of a new connection. But deep down, I knew I was enjoying the attention more than I should. Days turned into weeks, and our chats became a quiet highlight in my routine. A text about a shared joke, a quick compliment on my presentation, a conspiratorial smile during a dull meeting. None of it crossed any obvious lines, but the undercurrent was there, subtle, unspoken, yet undeniable. I noticed I was checking my phone more often, glancing toward his desk, even timing my lunch breaks to match his. At home, I grew quieter. Aaron didn't push. Perhaps he was too consumed with work to notice. Or maybe he noticed and didn't know what to say. One evening, as we sat eating takeout in silence, Aaron's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, typed a quick reply, and set it face down. A sharp, irrational pang went through me. Jealousy, though I had no right to feel it. I was the one chasing the warmth of someone else's attention, not him. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the shadows stretching long across the room. I told myself I was in control, that I knew where the line was. But the truth was, I had already stepped toward it, inch by inch, with every lingering glance and every harmless text. Looking back, I can see it so clearly, how the road to that night began not with one catastrophic decision, but with a series of small, seemingly innocent ones. Choices I thought didn't matter. I was wrong. It was late autumn when the invitation came. A small after-hours gathering at a downtown art studio, casual, Lucas had said, just a few people from work and some friends of friends. Aaron was buried in a project deadline, his desk at home a fortress of tracing paper and pencils. "Go," he said, kissing my temple without looking up. You've been cooped up all week. Have fun. The city was crisp that night, the air carrying the faint scent of rain and exhaust. Streetlights cast warm halos on the pavement, and my breath rose in small clouds as I walked toward the address Lucas had texted. The studio was tucked between a bookstore and a wine bar, its windows glowing with soft, amber light. Inside, the space smelled faintly of turpentine and coffee, with canvases leaning against exposed brick walls. Lucas spotted me almost immediately, weaving through the crowd with a drink in hand. "Daniel, you made it," he said, his smile a little too wide, his gaze lingering just a second too long. The room felt warmer when he stood close. We mingled in small circles, trading jokes with people whose names I immediately forgot. Lucas stayed near, guiding me toward the quieter edges of the room when conversations grew too loud. He had a way of making the rest of the crowd fade, as though we were orbiting in our own small pocket of space. Halfway through the night, the gathering thinned. The music softened. People drifted toward the exit. Lucas leaned against a tall table, his shoulder brushing mine. "Want to step out for some air?" Outside, the city hummed in low tones. A passing bus, the muffled bass from the bar next door, the rustle of leaves along the sidewalk. We walked without a destination, our footsteps falling into an unplanned rhythm. He asked about my dreams, the ones I'd stopped talking about because life had become a checklist. I told him about the novel I once wanted to write, the one gathering dust in a drawer. Somewhere between one street lamp and the next, his hand found mine. Not a firm grip, not a declaration, just the lightest touch, fingers grazing in a way that made my pulse jump. I didn't pull away. We stopped at a small park, empty except for the wind curling through the branches. He turned to face me, his voice low. "You know I like you, right?" I could have laughed it off. I could have said I was married, as if that fact alone were a wall no one could climb. Instead, I just stood there, the air between us sharp with something unspoken. When he stepped closer, the scent of his cologne mixed with the cool night air. His eyes searched mine, waiting. My mind screamed warnings. Aaron's smile, our kitchen on Saturday mornings, the quiet intimacy of shared history. But my body betrayed me, leaning the smallest fraction forward. His lips brushed mine, not a full kiss, just the suggestion of one, as if testing whether I would meet him halfway. And for a fleeting second, I almost did. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Aaron. "Don't forget to grab milk on your way home. Love you." 3 words. Ordinary, domestic, but they landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples through the fog in my mind. I stepped back. The air felt colder now. "I should go," I said, my voice rougher than I intended. Lucas held my gaze for a moment before nodding. "Of course. I'll see you at work." There was no anger in his tone, just a quiet understanding that whatever almost happened wasn't going to. The walk home was longer than it should have been. Streetlights blurred into one another, my thoughts loud and relentless. I replayed that almost kiss again and again, each time feeling the mix of temptation and relief twist tighter in my chest. When I reached our building, the light in the living room was still on. Aaron sat on the couch, laptop open, a mug of tea beside him. He looked up, smiled, that familiar, unguarded smile, and in that instant I felt both the weight of what I'd nearly lost and the fragile thread still holding us together. I told myself I would sleep, that I'd think clearly in the morning. But deep down, I already knew the truth. This night hadn't destroyed my marriage. It had only shown me how close I'd come to doing it myself. Sleep never came that night. I lay in the dark, eyes open, every sound in the apartment amplified. The hum of the fridge, the faint ticking of the wall clock, Aaron's even breathing beside me. My mind kept returning to that park, to Lucas's hand brushing mine, to the moment I nearly crossed the line. I'd stopped myself, but not before discovering how frighteningly easy it was to step toward something I could never take back. By morning, the weight in my chest was unbearable. I moved through breakfast in silence, pushing scrambled eggs around my plate. Aaron noticed. "You're quiet," he said, sipping his coffee. "I didn't sleep much," I replied, my voice low. And then, before I could talk myself out of it, I added, "There's something I need to tell you." We sat at the table, the steam from our mugs curling into the still air. I told him everything. The late-night gathering, the walk with Lucas, the almost kiss. My voice shook, not from fear of anger, but from fear of the look I might see in his eyes. Aaron didn't interrupt. He didn't raise his voice. He just listened, his expression unreadable. When I finished, the silence stretched so long I wondered if I should leave the table entirely. Finally, he asked, "Why?" The question wasn't accusatory. It was raw, almost vulnerable. I took a breath. Because I've been feeling invisible. Like we've been living side by side, not together. And when someone noticed me, really noticed me, I let it matter too much. Aaron leaned back, exhaling slowly. I didn't realize I'd been that absent. I thought you were okay with how things were. I wasn't, I admitted. But I didn't say anything. That's on me. We talked for hours, more honestly than we had in years. He told me about the pressure at work, how he'd been so focused on proving himself that he assumed our marriage was on autopilot. I told him how the quiet between us had stopped feeling peaceful and started feeling lonely. By the time the sun shifted across the kitchen floor, we hadn't solved everything, but something had shifted. We agreed to make changes, not vague promises, but concrete steps. Weekly date nights, no matter how small. Phones down during meals, asking real questions and listening to the answers. The following weeks felt tentative at first, like learning to walk again after an injury. We stumbled, old habits tugged at us, but we also found moments of warmth we hadn't felt in years. One night, Aaron surprised me with tickets to a small jazz club we'd loved when we were first dating. We sat close, knees touching under the table, and for the first time in months I felt not just married, but connected. I cut back on the extra conversations with Lucas. Our work chats returned to their original purpose, and the undercurrent that had once thrilled me faded into something neutral. It wasn't about avoiding temptation as much as it was about protecting the space Aaron and I were rebuilding. One rainy Saturday, we stayed in and cooked together, the kitchen warm with a scent of garlic and rosemary. As we moved around each other, our hands brushed, and we laughed at the clumsy collision. It was small, ordinary, but it felt like a quiet victory. The night with Lucas never fully left my mind, but over time, the shame turned into something else, a reminder. That close call had forced me to look directly at the cracks I'd been ignoring. It had shown me that love isn't simply preserved by good intentions. It has to be chosen, tended to, and fought for, even in the comfortable years. One evening, months later, Aaron and I sat on the balcony watching the city lights blink to life. He took my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "You know," he said, "I'm glad you told me. Even though it hurt, I think it saved us." I squeezed his hand back, feeling the truth of it settle between us. Me too. Temptation had nearly taken me from the life we'd built, but instead, it became the catalyst for saving it. And now, every time I choose to come home, in every sense of the word, I know exactly why.